channel, yeah. Let's see if the connection is there. Yeah, there we are. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. So, Pranam, good morning to all of you, and welcome. Thank you so much, Hari Vyasadevji and family, for hosting us, receiving us. And thank you, each of you, for your time today and your intention in coming, right? At the end of the day, Bhakti is deeply intentional, right? It's all about intention. Bhava Grahi Janardana, that's the name of Krishna. He's Bhava Grahi. He's the one who pays close attention to our intention, which in one sense is, as we were talking in the morning, sometimes we may become too obsessed with rules and regulations and how to do everything perfectly externally, and Krishna is just looking for our intention. But sometimes also the fact that Krishna is mostly concerned with our intention can be challenging, because it's an invitation to ask, okay, where is my intention, right? It's a beautiful challenge. So my point is, all of you are here today intentionally, I hope Vyasadeva didn't force any one of you to be here, didn't pay anyone to be here to fill the room, that you didn't just were walking and bumping up and ended up in the room casually. So there is some intention. That's my point in you coming here. So that's an investment of your will, of your energy, of your time. As I like to say always, you're now giving me your time. And Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, I am time personified. So if you are giving me your time and Krishna's time, you are giving me Krishna. So I'm already indebted to you from the very beginning. So hopefully whatever I can share today is an attempt to reciprocate. Because at the end of the day, it's always reciprocal. Where a life of bhakti, a life of love is always a two-way street. It's not just one person giving, the other person receiving. As Rupa Goswami makes that beautifully clear in the fourth verse of Upadeshamrita, where he's speaking about loving interactions, loving symptoms between devotees, Priti Lakshanam. He mentions 6 symptoms, but actually he mentions 3, and 3 in both directions, right? So making the point, this is always reciprocal. Prasad, giving and receiving. Gifts, giving and receiving. Heart, mind, giving and receiving. So how to always keep the reciprocal flow going on. It's not only about always giving, it's not only about always receiving. It's about balancing both with the other. So yeah, for me, that's what it's all about, being here today, sharing with you, having accepted the invitation of Vyasadeva, Agastya Muni, and Nanga Manjari that I came to know a few weeks ago. It was not in my plan to be here, I can tell you, till a few days ago that I received the invitation, and I disrupted my itinerary, which almost never happens, but it happened that I had a few free days, so it matched perfectly. So here we are. I'm always, again, in the giving and receiving, I'm also not coming here just to give and you to receive, so to say, but I'm also looking forward to what I can receive from you, what I can learn, what I can be nourished by. So I'm excited at that prospect as well. So let's see what these days bring. So anyhow, we were talking about, for these days that we'll be sharing, just opening the doors if you have questions that you may like to bring or topics that you may like to explore. I'm not bringing any topics myself in mind these days. I mean, I can speak without stop. I have no problem with that. But I'm most concerned about what you are concerned. so to say, what's important for you, what's interesting for you, and trying to honor that, to serve that, and leaving space for open questions, which I personally think is very, in my opinion at least, very necessary, very healthy, even very healing, to just say something as simple as, you can ask whatever question you want. Sometimes that's necessary to feel that, oh, really? Any question? Any question. Really? Even controversial question? Especially controversial. Even taboo topics? Especially taboo. I mean, not because we're looking for controversy's sake, but many times because some topics, for one reason or another, are made somehow pushed below the carpet or whatever, and there's maybe some need to especially address whatever is necessary. And of course, this is a very natural pattern in our tradition, questions and answers, which I personally like to reframe the Q&A, questions and answers, Q&E. I call it quest and exploration, because I don't like to feel like, okay, I will give you an answer and it's the end of the conversation, next question, but it's an ongoing exploration. Do we have, maybe we can come a little bit closer, so whomever comes up in our space. We have built some trust, you can get a little closer. Yeah. So we find this in our tradition over and over again in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. All these narratives are built upon questions and answers, right? And we need both. We need both. Something that I really struck me in one of my readings of the Bhagavatam after years, of course, of studying the Bhagavatam, is that at one point I started to notice this pattern that most of the times that Parikshit Maharaj will present the question to Sukadeva Goswami, many times, if you pay attention, before answering the question or before exploring the question, Sukadeva Goswami will praise the question and the questioner. He will take time to glorify the question in itself. And then he tries to say something about it. But first he spends some time in appreciating the question. Because many times what we need not necessarily is always answers. Sometimes we need to ask the proper questions. Right? The question can in itself be an opener, like open a whole world of exploration. And at least for me personally, answers are ongoing, ever evolving, ever unfolding. That's something that I explore in my recent book, that there are not final words on anything. Of course, I can say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not that at some point that will change, but how that is, it's always evolving. Like Chaitanya Charitamrita say, Krishna at every moment becomes more beautiful, and it doesn't stop. Now, it's not that he's the all attractive and he cannot get more attractive. He's the all attractive because he gets all the more attractive at every passing moment. So it's not that I can just give you an answer about Krishna's all attractiveness and there's nothing else to say about it, because he's getting always more attractive. So that keeps the conversation ongoing forever. It's not that in Golok Vrindavan nobody speaks anymore about Krishna's attractiveness, because they are in the spiritual world. They have nothing else to say. On the contrary, the closer you get to transcendence, the more you have to say and to continue exploring, right? And the more humble we become, because the more we realize there's no end to this exploration. We can never put a final word and say, I know it all, I've said it all, I understood it all. That's not the symptom of an enlightened being. No. First question, first comment, first sharing. Your name?
My name is Frank.
Frank, welcome. Pleasure to meet you.
You open, thank you for your opening.
It's fine.
Because this shows that it is open. And there's my question first. What's your common problem or question? To have a path means to have a goal. And this is something which is fixed. And then also to be still is a fixed goal, and still to be open that this is still not the end. Like you explained, it's always higher, higher. I mean,
he was reading my book before the class a little bit, right?
No. I just went on your the camera. I just went on your page, but I didn't read. But this is my my approach to God consciousness is philosophy. So this is coming up, and you always have, as me at least, I always have this question: how to solve that as a beginner? This balance to have a goal and still to be open to change, to be in change for them. And yeah, this is now.
Great. Thank you for asking that, for sharing that. And I really, yeah, I say that you read my book? I probably knew it, you didn't, but joking in the sense that I speak a lot about that in the book because it's a very important topic. Because many times the idea of having a goal kind of brings a closure to everything. Like you reach the goal, that's it. And you're like, so now what? No, you reached the goal. No? So if the goal is finished, there's no more growth or progress, how much is a desirable goal, right? So is there a possibility of thinking about the goal in a different way? And there is, thank God. And in our tradition, we will say, at least from our Bhakti perspective, Srimad Bhagavatam says Bhaktya Sanjataya Bhaktya, which means Bhakti comes from Bhakti, and Bhakti goes to Bhakti. So Bhakti is the practice, and Bhakti is the goal. But again, when saying goal, I'm not saying a finished state, but an open. And in that sense, we may say then we cannot speak it about a goal as we sometimes understand it, like a finished point. It's an ongoing attainment. Of course, in our tradition, we could say there are these stages of bhakti, shraddha, sadhu sanga, bhajana, kriyanartha, nivritti, nishta, ruchi, shakti, bhava, prem. So once you attain prem, you have officially attained the goal. No? You will be accredited. You will receive your trophy, so to say. But when you study the nature of prem, it's always growing. No? Rupa Goswami explains prem as always expanding. So you attain prem, but in the context of attaining prem, you continue to attain newer and newer levels, degrees of prem without end forever. So it's a matter of language, right? Whether you want to say, in one sense, there is no goal. I mean, there is a goal, but you can never fully attain the goal because the nature of the goal itself is ever expanding. That's the nature of love. Or yeah, we can say again, there is a goal, but the nature of the goal is that you can never fully. That's what Sri Chaitanya did, right? In our tradition, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if there is someone who had prem, that's Sri Chaitanya. Let's put it that way. Let's question everyone else having attained prem, hypothetically, as an exercise. There is one person you cannot deny that person was possessed by divine love, that's Sri Chaitanya. And what did he say? What did he have to say? Na prema gandoshti darapi harome. In me, there is not even the scent of prem. So that's a very interesting paradox here, because Sri Chaitanya for us is Prem Purushottam. That's a name that he's received. No? Ramachandra is Maryada Purushottam, Krishna is Lila Purushottam, Sri Chaitanya is Prema Purushottam. The divine being, when the divine being chooses to become the embodiment of Prem, of divine love, and he says himself, in me there is not even the aroma of love. Well, he's the very embodiment of it. So how does it fit, right? He gives this unique example, na prema gandho. I mean, there is not even the gandha, the aroma of prem. The example is like, you may have this little box where there was some camphor, and you take out the camphor. Still there is the aroma of camphor. Mahaprabhu says, in me, there is not even the aroma of prem. Like nothing. But when you observe him, it's like, nothing, everything. So that's the paradox of love, that the more love you have, the less you feel you have. It's very interesting because the more love you have, the more you become aware of how much more love there is there. So by contrast, you feel, I have nothing. So it's very confusing in one sense, if we just try to make sense of that with our rational mind. Because the more you have something, the more you have something, right? If I have one mridanga, I have one mridanga. If I get one more mridanga, I have two mridangas. And I have one more, I don't have one mridanga, I have three mridangas, right? That's how our math works. But in love, the more love you have, the less you feel you have, in a healthy way. Not that you are going depressed or neurotic, but just like the longing increases. That's the, as I refer to in my book, that's the insatiable appetite of love. Always more, always more, always more dedication, always more love, and always more humility. Because love increases, and it's never that you, now I have so much more love, and now I have even more love. You feel, I don't have, but I want to have love. So that's the nature of our tradition. It's really non-dual in that sense. 2 days ago, I was for the last days in Davos in Switzerland, and we were sharing with couple, Kamani and Keshavacharya, maybe some of you know them. And we were talking about Shyam Das from the Vallabh Sampradaya. He passed some years ago, famous scholar, Kirtaniya, friends of them. And I was seeing a video of him that he made this nice point. I never thought it from that way. Of course, our tradition is non-dual. That's a point I try to insist many times, because sometimes we think non-duality means impersonalism, but that's not correct. Our tradition is non-dual, like every Vedantic tradition is non-dual. But he will present non-duality from this place. He will say, for us, Bhakti is the practice and Bhakti is the goal. He said, you cannot get more non-dual than that. So I realized, oh, that's a nice way of putting it. Because we are doing what we are doing, and that's an important point also. And I saw you were raising your hands. I'm not forgetting. I'll go there in a minute. If our practice is the goal, so to say, if what we are doing is what we want to do forever, right? We are not practicing Bhakti to attain something else as a goal. We are not doing Bhakti to attain moksha, liberation. That's not our tradition. We're not doing Bhakti to attain heavenly planets. In other schools, they may do lots of penance and restriction to enjoy without limit in the heavenly planets. That's very interesting. I'm depriving myself of a lot of stuff here so I can go to Swarga and enjoy like crazy. So the practice and the goal are very different, right? Or in other traditions, the same. They're in Jnana, they may practice certain things, but their goal is to merge in Brahman. So the goal and the practice are different. But in Bhakti, the goal and the practice are the same. So what we are doing is what we want to do forever. So in one sense, you could say you are already saved, because you are already doing what you want to do for eternity. In one sense, you're already there. As long as you remain sincere practicing, there's, as Krishna says in the Gita and so many other places, there's no fall, there's no loss, there's no diminution, there's all assurance that you're already on the path to success. So I don't need even to think about being saved. Salvation is not a concern for a devotee, actually. Because that's already happening. Because if you are doing what you want to do for eternity, then the question is what I'm saved for. That's the actual question. So that's a good question. Like once someone asked Srila Prabhupada, like what's the goal of chanting Hare Krishna? And for him, it was like a funny question. He was like, oh, what's the goal of chanting Hare Krishna? And he replied like very like innocently, very naturally, the goal of chanting Hare Krishna is that you will be able to chant more Hare Krishna. Like implying, what else do you want to do, right? What we are doing is what we want to do forever. So by nature, the goal of what you are doing is that you will be able to do the same more, with more love, with more depth, with more dedication, right? So some thoughts. I don't know if they somehow address some of your points. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Your name?
Bhakti Luis.
Bhakti Luis.
Already clarifying words. I hope, the came up other questions. I hope I can now put the right question. I mean, I think also another answer to this question to Prabhupada was to have no fear. I think this I find also quite interesting. And my question is maybe your some words from you about the position of knowledge, like getting or sitting down, reading scriptures, and I mean this helped me a lot in the last 2 years. But also I see the inclination to not so much be within my heart or living out of living more with love. It's more holding me in a space of in my mind, and maybe your how you deal with those things, because there's a lot of knowledge and we can
we can spend the rest of our life just reading the books.
And
thank you. That's a healthy concern. Head and heart. Not like we were talking the other day in Davos with someone that did the most important parikram, the most important pilgrimage we have to do is from head to heart. It's a 20-centimeter move, but it takes a few lifetimes. So we have nothing against the head, right? But it's not only from the neck up. We can become trapped here, right? And suffocated here, and we forgot to connect, to go to bring down. That's something I always like when in some of the Leelas, Krishna is killing the Asuras with the Sudarshan, and generally the Sudarshan goes and cancels this part. And Sudarshan, the word Sudarshan means proper vision. So if you take all that, if you read that more symbolically, proper vision is like cutting the head, too much head. You are too much stuck in your head space. Gain proper vision. Use your head in the service of the heart. Again, I'm not against head. I love to read. I love to study. But all that is in the service of something else. It's not just knowledge is not for its own sake. And that's what Krishna makes it clear beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita, actually, when he's speaking about knowledge, chapter 9, verse 2. Since we are talking about knowledge, let's go to the verses. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. He starts speaking about Bhakti. Bhakti means loving service. He said, that's Raja Vidya. That's the king of all knowledge. So ultimately, the king of knowledge is love. So in one sense, there is no contradiction between knowledge and love or devotion or head and heart. So ultimately, we need to get to that point when love is the king of knowledge. Because why? When I love, I know all that I need to know. If I love you, I know you in the deepest possible way. But if I don't love you, but I try to know you and get all the technical information, Luis, his name, he was born here, that doesn't mean I know you. So, of course, there is a purpose to knowledge, but knowledge has to become alive. No, knowledge is not a dead thing. So, for example, you were talking about studying the books. And for me, studying Shastra or scripture is not just like me taking information, but it's a mystical conversation with the book. It's a dialogue. It's not just me consuming data. I'm opening a book, but the book is not a book. It's a living sound. It's alive. And Bhagavad Gita is not just an old conversation that ran out of date or something. It's still updated. It's still alive. I've read Bhagavad Gita, I don't know how many times, I lost count, and it's always new. And that's what Sanjaya says at the end of the Gita. And every time I recall this conversation, I rejoice again and again. He's not saying every time I recall this conversation, I get so bored because it's always the same. I always know this by heart. It's pure information. No, he's thrilling. He's excited. So I think it's important that when we address scripture or any form of knowledge, we keep that something. We know that's coming from a living source. So if it's coming from a living source, it should make me a living embodiment of that. It's not just information to keep here and to show off to my friends, look, all the verses I've learned and all the concepts that I know, and we can end up there, right? Thinking like having information equates being advanced, and that's not the same. No. It's like saying being a good singer is the same as being a good kirtaniya. No, that's not the same. You can be a good singer. That doesn't mean that you're a kirtaniya. No. What's a kirtaniya? Trinada pisu nichayana taroda pisa kishnama ninamanadana kirtaniya sadahri. No. Because being a good singer, that I mean, I'm not against being a good singer, but that's not the whole thing. So it's the same. I know a lot of things. I'm a scholar. Scholar doesn't mean you are a mystic. No? You can have a great capacity to archive lots of information, but what you are doing with that, how much you are internalizing that, expressing that in your relationships. That for me is the crucial arena. Yeah. No? What do you do with all that knowledge? I'll look how you relate to other people. I'll look how you move in the world. That's what tells me what you are doing with the information. That's the information takes you to transformation. Because the very word information, if you divide it, is information. I'm in formation. I'm going through a process of formation. It's not just data stuck in my head, but it has to. So, and of course, it's not easy because, and I speak about that in my second book, like in our tradition, we have so much knowledge and so much detailed knowledge about, I mean, we know the names of Krishna's earrings. No? That's too much. I mean, it's beautiful, of course. No, I'm not complaining about that. But we can develop even a superiority complex, right? No other tradition knows that God has earrings. On top of that, we know the names of those earrings. We know so much. Yeah, but then you relate to other person completely in completely impersonal way. So what's the purpose of knowing Krishna's earrings name if you don't know how to deal with your neighbor, so to say, with your peer? It's a spiritual bypassing. You are using revealed knowledge as escapism, not to deal with more basic human interactions, right? So I've seen that a lot. And I'm not free from that. I'm not here to say I'm beyond everything, but I think we need to become as coherent as possible. No? So whatever we are getting to know in terms of knowledge, information, we have to be very honest and sincere and strict. And how do I express that in my relationships? And how do I embody that? Instead of getting more information to avoid putting the other information in practice. Because again, there's so much information that I can always have the excuse, I'm too busy knowing more. But what we are doing with all that? So for me, it's very, and we find, I mean, if you really read the scriptures, we will see the emphasis is there. It's not just get information. Like we were talking today during breakfast, this section in the third canto of the Bhagavatam were about deity worship. Sometimes one can get very entangled in all the details. Deity worship and this mudra and this mantra and this way and that way. And Kapila Dev says, if you worship me in my deity form, but you mistreat other human beings, your worship is useless. Very strong words he uses, a whole series of verses. So for me, when someone asks me, Maharaj, give me some insight about Archana, go to those verses first. No, it's not about using the altar as escapism. No, I'm too busy doing all my mudras, it takes me, then you close the curtain, you don't know how to relate to your brothers and sisters. And the deity in the altar is saying like, what are you doing? No, it doesn't make sense. If you love me in the altar, you have to love me in the heart of everyone else. Because I'm in the heart of everyone else. Every heart is an altar. So you cannot just worship one altar and mistreat every other altar. Of course, in the beginning we may be like that, and Krishna is compassionate enough to, okay, we have to begin somewhere, Krishna says. He worships me in the altar, but insults me in everyone else's heart. He will understand in time. Let's pray for him, Krishna says. But yeah, gradually we have to become more coherent. And again, knowledge is, I'm not against knowledge. Again, it's important to have proper orientation and education and sambandha, we will call in our tradition, sambandha gyan. They have avideya and prayojan, right? Sambandha is the founding knowledge, but the very word sambandha is putting things in context, because sambandha means everything, bandha is related, is bonded. So everything is interconnected. So whatever you learned, then you have to apply that in practice, understanding everything is interrelated. So again, it's not Krishna, I love you, and I mistreat everyone else, but everything's interconnected. So the more we acquire proper sambandha, we will understand, wow, everything is connected to Krishna in the center, and I have to respect and honor everything and everyone. So yeah, of course, it's good to be aware of the temptation of knowledge, if you want to use that word, right? Like just wanting to acquire and acquire and acquire. So at the end of the day, it's our sincerity, right? Why I'm doing this? What's the fruit of this? Is this for increasing my relationships, my dedication, my lovingness, or I'm really running away from something that I need? I'm not saying, I cannot say that for anyone, and just have to inspect my own heart in that regard, right? So yeah, you have to, as one teacher, someone once said, you have to use your head in the service of your heart, right? So you use your head in a way that your heart is softened. That's a good way of like yardstick of measuring. Is this knowledge having an effect? Is my heart being melted? No, I'm becoming more empathic, more loving, more sensitive, or more narrow-minded, fanatical, cold-hearted, indifferent, superiority complex, proud, who knows what. So yeah, service and knowledge in the service of gyan and vigyan. Gyan could be translated as knowledge. Vigyan is wisdom, realized knowledge, which means a knowledge, digested knowledge, from head digested to the heart, and expressing not only in relationships, but expressing even in the smallest details, right? That's why I always love to hear all these experiences of Prabhupada disciples, that they will like highlight how he will, whatever, drink a glass of water. No? But in even those small gestures, if someone is truly realized, that's a learning moment. Just watching someone like taking a glass of water, taking a flower, it's done with care for every detail. So, some thoughts. I don't know if that helps. Thank you for the share. And then I go to another answer.
I just wanted to connect to this, but yeah.
Okay, your question is kind of connected. Goes in. If it's another, we go to the connected one first. Then okay.
Actually, you just said also now this with Vijnana and Jnana, because my experience is that so many knowledge in so many years, and then provoking situation comes and one is falling immediately on the nose, so to say. And I think this theoretical knowledge is not the end, it's just the way through the experience, because I see that real knowledge, at least in my life as being mother, is through the experience. Of course, theoretical knowledge is also there, wonderful, but didn't play much role than experience knowledge.
Yeah.
Just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, again, we are not against theoretical knowledge, but the theory is there to take us to a practice, to take us to an experience. So if it just stays in the theory department, stuck there, theory. And
It's
Krishna,
nice to see not only talk, but also how one walk.
Exactly, walking your talk. Yeah, that's why Arjuna asked Krishna in the Gita, how does a sage sits? How does a sage walks? How does a sage does anything? no? Because again, it's not just you. Again, you can become a scholar. I'm very charismatic, and I can sit and give a lecture, and everyone will be like, "Wow!" But that doesn't mean I'm advanced at all. I can just become a professional speaker, and so then the real thing is, okay, let's see what he does after the talk. After when he wakes up from the thrones, the vyasasana or whatever, let's see how they conduct themselves in the day-to-day, small details, relationships. Then we see not to inspect others so much as to inspect ourselves. And Krishna says that in the Gita, right, in the same verse that I quoted a minute ago, when he says Raja Vidya, Bhakti is the king of knowledge. He says Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmam. So this dharma, this bhakti, is only understood through personal experience, not only theory. Theory doesn't mean you understood it. You need to have an experience that is so real, so undeniable. Okay, now this is real. No?
I also like the point you made that actually that it's actually living divine sound. When you read something, if you are like really aware and conscious, and actually this word you're reading right now are actually speaking to you and relates pretty much to your situation you are in right now.
Yeah, I like to always think that every time we open a book, it's a conversation. It's not just me reading. It's reciprocal. So I have to listen what's being told, and I have to respond to that in a certain way. So, what's your name?
My name is Harina Prasad.
Harina Prasad. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you too. Yeah, what I wanted to explore deeper or hear more about you were sharing what I would like to explore more is like the mystical part.
Okay.
And you also talked about prayoja.
Okay.
And I would like to hear like from lila-smaranam how we could learn from it, because I heard like from the scriptures that like lila-smaranam, it's like if we hear like from like the spiritual world, it cleanses our heart. And maybe we get a drop of prem or a drop of love inside of our heart. And I would love to explore that.
Thank you. So lila-smaranam, of course, means to contemplate the divine play. Lila is basically divine play of the divine. I will say that, of course, that's something very important, and that has been emphasized by our Goswamis, and especially that's related to the notion of Raganuga Bhakti, of the inner life of those who want to serve in the footsteps of the Brajavasis, the inhabitants of Vrindavan. But also, of course, we know, especially from the tradition I will assume most of us are connected with, coming from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, and other personalities. There has been some warnings, not against lila-smaranam, because we have nothing against contemplating the lila, but it's on the contrary, because we appreciate that so much, we want to approach that in the most careful way to properly honor that reality. Because let's be honest, there's always a temptation of taking things cheaply or superficially, or rushing towards certain levels of realization. And again, I'm not someone who will say, you cannot do that ever, stop talking about that. But also, I'm not someone who will say, let's go there as soon as possible, without caring for things that may need to be solved in the way of that. Because again, to be honest, as before we said, some people may love Krishna in the altar and then don't know how to relate to other human beings. I've seen many times devotees speaking about high topics and representing them very poorly in how they relate to other people and how they live their lives. So it's important to be as coherent as possible, so to say, right? So, for example, Jiva Goswami, his Bhakti Sandarbha, he's speaking, and again, Jiva Goswami, he's a Manjari, he's serving in the Lila eternally. So we are hearing from those personalities we are invited to follow. He will say there is a sequence of approach to these realities. No? So he will speak about Shravan, Kirtan, Smaran, like Prahlad Maharaj will describe Nava Laksham Bhakti, these ninefold expressions of devotion, starting with Shravan, listening, Kirtan, talking, singing, Smaran. And then Jiva Goswami will make it the further division of Nama, Rupa, Guna, and Lila. You may have heard that one: name, form, qualities, and Lila. So he will give a sequence of approach, not to make it like fully mechanical, but just to make a point of. So he will say first starts with Shravan. On one side we have Shravan, Kirtan, Smaran. On this side we have Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. So he will say first comes Nam, Shravan, listening the name. Then Nam, Kirtan. Then Nam, Shravan. Then comes Rupa, Shravan. Rupa, Kirtan, Rupa, Smaran. Then comes Guna, Shravan, Guna, Kirtan, Guna, Smaranam. And then comes Lila, Shravan, Lila, Kirtan, and Lila, Smaranam. So he tries to make it clear Lila Smaranam is kind of the culmination of all this process. And sometimes I've seen the devotees go into Lila Smaranam like the first thing. So it's like there are a few things in between. And again, I'm not talking to you because, of course, I don't know you. But sometimes I've seen in some cases there is some like rushing towards the higher thing. I was talking the other day with someone about these topics actually, and that person told me like, but that's the highest thing. Okay, but who say that you are ready for the highest thing? I mean, we are not questioning, like, I don't know, serving. Someone was asking me on Radhashtami. Recently, we were giving a lecture. Okay, our ultimate goal, Gaudiya Sampradaya, is Manjari Bhavan, to serve Sri Radha as a Kinkari. Yes. I mean, that doesn't mean everyone will end up in that position of service, but I can get the point. But that doesn't mean that, I don't know, Bhakta John comes from his first day here to a meeting, and I will like, okay, sit down, I will introduce you to what it means to serve Sri Radha in the Kunjas. Like, no. Probably first we need to speak about a few preliminary topics for a few years, right? Because many times we have so many other dimensions that need to be properly integrated. No, most of us were also talking in breakfast, or some of us are carrying childhood trauma. Let's go there. Let's put lila-smaranam in pause for a moment. Nothing against lila-smaranam. But my point is, even if we keep prayojan as a goal, as the ultimate attainment, as we already explained, that goal is ongoing. And prayojan means also necessity, interestingly. So the ultimate goal is the ultimate necessity and always creates a new necessity for more. Okay, lila-smaranam, be absorbed in the contemplation of the lila and eventually participating in the childhood trauma. I can work on my childhood trauma in the service of lila-smaranam, right? I mean, because I really want to ultimately serve Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan to the best of my abilities, first I have to heal my human dimension. So one can do one thing in connection to the other. It's not that there are two like, oh, that has nothing to do with Braja Lila, going to therapy, whatever. I'm not saying everyone should go to therapy, but I'm saying most of us have some wounds, some unhealed, unredeemed dimensions. And many times some of those things get in the way of our practice, of our proper understanding of what's going on in the Lila. Because we're saying lila-smaranam, but our lila-smaranam is related to ideally Vrindavan. Vrindavan's Lila is Nara Lila. Nara Lila. Nara Lila means, you tell me, what means Nara?
Human.
human. So Vrindavan Lila is human Lila. It's divine, of course, but it's human also. Fully divine, fully human. So if me as a human here and now, I'm half human because I'm totally dysfunctional as a human. It can happen. And I want to understand that Lila, who is fully human, with my half-baked humanity, probably I will filter and distort and have who knows which idea of what's going on there in my attempt of lila-smaranam. So I can heal and have my humanity integrated and aligned and in place for the sake of lila-smaranam. Because I want so badly to eventually serve in that realm that is fully human, I will try to be as human as I can here. Because again, many times I've seen people speaking a lot about this human lila, but they do not behave very humanly. So that's a dissociation there. So how we get closer to that lila? Well, one big part is be as human as you can be. What it means human, again, if I tell you be more human, please be more human. What do you understand by that? Be more what?
Kind, compassionate.
Be more kind, be more compassionate, be more loving. So that then the question comes, I'm being as kind, as compassionate as I can, or I could be more, but I'm escaping a little bit that. If I'm honest with myself and I notice I could be more human. Okay, that's my homework. That's my lila-smaranam in one sense. It begins there by having my humanity fully in place. So when I address that realm, which is fully human, I get it right. So that will be one point. Although again, it may not sound like I'm addressing the details of lila-smaranam, but also something that I think is important. And of course, I'm talking in general. I'm not giving personal guidance to anyone because I basically do not know it, almost most of you. So guidance on these departments is personalized, in my opinion, because everyone is in a different part of their journey. But an important thing for me when contemplating the lilas also is there are different ways of approaching a lila. You can read the lilas and also relate to scripture. So we can read scripture or read the lila in scripture literally, in a more archetypal, symbolic way, or we can participate in it esoterically. To give you an example, the other day we were sharing this verse from the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying, what is night for some people is day for others. Right? That's the verse of the Gita. So if you read that literally, what will that mean? What is night for some people is day for others means at some you tell me, I won't tell you. Tell me. Literally.
Does a self-realized person say?
No. That's not literal. You're interpreting that. That's the next one. Tattva-darshana.
When I'm getting up at 4, others are going to sleep.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's a literal meaning. You follow my point? That's what the text is saying.
Yeah.
It's night for someone, it's day for another. Now, if you go to a more interpretative reading or more symbolic, it's what you mentioned, Luis. Some people is awakened to some reality and other people are unconscious to that. That's what you were saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can derive that reading from the same verse. That's no longer literal. You're interpreting on a deeper, and it makes more sense, right? I mean, the literal reading makes sense also, because we know at some time people are sleeping, the other people, devotees waking for Mongol Arti, other people is coming from partying all night, so we know that. So that reading is possible, but it's not the deepest reading. You go to the interpretative, symbolic, archetypal reading. That is broader, deeper. Some people is unconscious to some reality, and some people is conscious to that reality. They are awakened, they are sleeping. Now, what will be an esoteric reading of that verse? That again is not there in the verse literally, but if you have these sensibilities internally, you will go there. What's day for some is night for others. Well, an example would be, for example, in the lila, let's go to the lila, Sri Radha is spending the whole night with Krishna, right? In Rasa Lila, and with the gopis. So that's night, but that's day for her, because that's the moment she's with Krishna. And when the day comes, the sun is coming, the parrots, the different animals starts to do all the signs for them to wake up, because the whole of Vrindavan is awakening, so they cannot be caught red-handed, they have to return to their abodes, so for the lila to continue to happen. So Sri Radha awakens, and it's day, but for her it's night, because she has to be separated from Krishna. So that's an esoteric reading of the verse. Again, in the verse, it's not speaking of Radha and Krishna in the lila, but someone with that sensibility will read the verse in that way. So my point is here is each one of us are in different stages of the journey. So the same birds may say different things to different people. So we need to know how to relate to the lilas in a way that speaks to us. To give you an example, I don't know, you are contemplating the Govardhan Lila. Okay, contemplating Govardhan Lila. And the story is beautiful, but we don't want the Govardhan Lila just to be a cute story. No, I mean, it's a cute story, and you can tell that to your child when he's going to sleep at night. That's all that is perfect. But how that speaks to me where I am now in my journey. And what's the lesson that Lila is telling me? To give you an example, maybe it relates to where you are in your journey. And there are many lessons in the Govardhan Lila. There are so many things going on there, right? Of course, to begin with, Indra is accustomed to receiving this worship, and the worship is canceling. Indra goes crazy. No. How much do I relate to that? No. Now let's not go to Krishna and Brajava. Let's stay with Indra for a moment. Because probably we may identify more with Indra as a character than with Krishna or this or that. Indra. No. As long as I receive some praise and some recognition, I'm nice, I'm providing rain, I'm nourishing. As much as the usual amount of prestige is not coming, the whole world needs to end now. Apocalypse. That was Indra going crazy, basically. How much is that speaking about me? I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm just saying how much that speaks to me, because it has to be relevant to me. If not, it's just a nice story. But so by relating the lila to your journey, in one way you start to participate in the lila. And that's for me the beginning of the ultimate participation in the lila, when you become a member of the lila. But it all begins by me feeling a part of the lila, by identifying, oh, that speaks to me in this way. So the more I feel a part of, I begin to participate. And then, of course, Indra throws the reins, and Brajavas go to Krishna for shelter, protected from the rain. And the rains also can refer to these harsh times in our life, and different difficult moments. That it seems that there's like, as they will say, you wake up with a cloud on your head. In this case, it will be you wake up with the Sambartaka on your head, and it may be more than a day. So what do we do in those moments? Where do we take shelter in? So again, speaking to our journey. And then an interesting thing that the Brajavasis ask Krishna for mercy or shelter, but they don't have a clue how that shelter what will be the form of that shelter. No, they never thought, oh, Krishna will pick the whole hill like a mushroom on his pink finger for a week. They didn't have that idea. They went to Krishna, they asked for shelter, but they left it to Krishna for him to decide how to give shelter. But many times we do not do that. We go to Krishna, give me mercy, and the mercy has to be in this way, in this size, in this color, with aroma, at this time of the day. Put a whole list of conditions, how Krishna is supposed to give me mercy. And Krishna is like, if you know all that so good, why you don't figure it out yourself? Why you need me? right? By Krishna, the Brajavasis asked for shelter without any further attached conditions. They were open to whatever Krishna will, and he did the most unthinkable thing. And they accepted that. So in the same way, we can pray for Krishna, give me shelter, and we have to be open. He will give me shelter in the best way he considers, which is the best way I need, which may not be the most comfortable. Let's not forget that part. What I want is one thing, what I need is not necessarily the same. So how do I react when Krishna is showing me his grace, shelter, mercy in ways that are totally unpredictable and unexpected? Do I take that shelter? Or do I pray again to Krishna to protect me from the shelter he gave me? We do that sometimes. Krishna, give me mercy. He gives mercy. We pray, Krishna, give me mercy to protect me from that. And he's like, that was my previous mercy. So that makes sense. Some examples,
Yes.
no, just some examples from the Govardhan Lila. We can take from, you name me a Lila and we can go there. No? Gopi Vastra Harana Lila. Krishna is still in the clothes of the gopis. Krishna wants to see the gopis naked. How does relate to me? Krishna wants to see me naked, vulnerable, honest, sincere. Not approaching him with masks, uncovering and hiding in religious masks. Nothing. He wants my full, honest presentation. Rasa Lila. Krishna is calling the gopis from the dark of the night, and the gopis are willing to risk so much just to, and they don't know what will happen. Will they meet Krishna? Or Krishna meets them, sends them back home, and the gopis are like, what's going on here? So lots of uncertainty and mystery and unknowing. How much I'm willing to go to those places. How much I'm addicted to certainty, to comfort zone. No. So for me, that's the beginning of the entrance into Govardhan Lila, Rasa Lila, Gopi Vastra. Because how that applies, where I am in practical terms in relation to all these principles. And the more I'm going through that, the more I'm actually participating in that. So I will personally, for at least for the majority of a devotee audience, which maybe in a certain stage in general, will emphasize that type of reading of scripture or contemplation of the lila. That's a form of lila-smaranam. It's not just that I have to imagine myself being dancing with Krishna in Rasa Lila or assisting Radha. That's another form of lila-smaranam, but again, from which place that's coming, how much the other forms of lila-smaranam have been embraced, like the examples I'm giving you. I don't know if that helps a little bit.
I'm so grateful, like for your perspective right now. Like the Leela or myths are so alive, and like this is how our ancestors like used to learn and teach. So it's like so beautiful how you share like a personal or deeper perspective inside of it. I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, if it doesn't become relatable to where I am here and now, it's just a nice story. And it's okay, it's a nice story. But again, how it becomes alive in my life, as we're saying, the book, how is conversation is alive. If not, still it's theory. It's information. Yes, please.
My name is Rajendra Das.
Brajendra Nandana.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
I have also a question related to knowledge, but different questions than before, about how can we really understand absolute truth. Usually in Vaishnava circles we say we learn it through Shastra. That Shastra is the ultimate Praman, the ultimate truth. But I feel that's leading to dogmatism also amongst devotees. Because, I mean, what is Shastra? Usually what becomes Shastra is originally some realization of someone, maybe even a personal realization, but maybe also influenced by time, place, and circumstances. So, or maybe it's related according to time, place, and circumstances that others during this time can relate. But often this is all taken so literally or so in a narrow way. And my personal impression over the years and feeling about this is that the ultimate Brahman is in the heart. And of course I can find that through scriptures, but whenever I read something, I have to say, does it resonate with my heart? Do I become softer by it? Do I become more loving by it when I read this, when I understand it, when I reflect on this? But if I just blindly say it's in the scriptures, and it's said in the scriptures, Prabhupada said it in this way, it can only be like this. But if we maybe study all the books, we can see, yes, he said it in this place, he said it like this. But if you take other things into account, you can understand that there must be something else behind this. What's your take on this about the ultimate Brahman? How would we get?
You have 7 hours to hear that.
7 days.
7 days, yeah. Who knows? We may have only 7 days, right? Oh, thank you. That's a very important question, of course. And I actually don't want to sound too self-referential to my own books, because if you are too self-referential, it ends up self-reverential, right? So, but I'm saying that I've written about that just to the point that it's so important for me that I had to just to support it. Okay, you have that concern. I had that concern, and I had to write about it. And I agree with you, basically, in everything you said. And there are a few, to me at least, important things, because again, we will say, okay, for us, Shastra is the main pramana. No? Pramana is like a means of knowledge, no? Like epistemology. How do we know what we know? No? So we will say, okay, Shastra is the ultimate pramana. And then, of course, and that's very much based on what Jiva Goswami establishes in Tattva Sandarbha, like Shastra, and particularly Srimad Bhagavatam, he will make the case there. Because also Shastra, what's Shastra, right? There are so many books, but there are some books that will be more exploring different areas, so to say, than others. But what's Shastras, you say, right? Shastra, for us, Shastra ultimately means Bhagavatam, to give an example. And the books of the Goswamis are like elaborations of that, and of course, Parampara and books of the Acharyas in line with the original revelation. But the Bhagavatam is Vyasadev's personal experience, right? He writing the Bhagavatam in Samadhi. That's the whole story of the Bhagavatam. So we have Pratyaksha, no? Pratyaksha, Anuman, and Shabda. Pratyaksha means a personal experience, basically, because it's sense experience, but also means personal experience. And you could say, oh, that's not so important, personal experience. Shabda is the most important. But if I do not have a personal experience in connection to scripture, to Shastra, I won't accept that. You follow my point? If I come to you with the 12 volumes of the Bhagavatam, right? And I try to hit your head with 12 volumes of the Bhagavatam, this is Shastra, this is the ultimate Brahman, you have to accept it. But if I don't have a healthy, transformative experience in connection to that message, hopefully I won't accept it. You follow my point? Hopefully I won't accept it from that place. If it's just like, because if not, it will be accepting just out of intimidation and fear, or like, okay, I have to accept that because if not, I will not be part of the group. I have to feel. But ideally, if I accept the Bhagavatam, it's because I had an experience of that. If I accept the Guru, if I accept anything, is based on Pratyaksha, personal experience. And again, Krishna said that, I referred to that a minute ago, 9.2 Gita, Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. Bhakti can only be understood by Pratyaksha. So that's interesting thing because we have Jiva Goswami, no? I studied the Sandarbha, so he makes very clear Shabda or Shastra is the ultimate Praman. Then I was studying Brihad Bhagavatamrita by Sanatana Goswami, who comes first, who is the first book of our Sampradaya in terms of, from Mahaprabhu's time, the very first book written is Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And there Sanatana Goswami says, personal experience is the main pramana. So, what to do now? And he makes it very clear. He's the Uttam, the topmost pramana of all, the topmost ways of knowing things is by your personal experience. But Jiva Goswami says it's Shastra. But what's Shastra? Is the personal experience of someone. No? The Bhagavatam is the personal experience of Vyasadeva. So at the end of the day, it's personal experience. Of course, what we call Shastra is the personal experience of an enlightened being. Because, of course, we all can have, everyone has personal experiences. That doesn't mean they are enlightened. That doesn't mean that we will take them as the ultimate authority. If you follow my point, if someone completely confused comes with their personal experience, I like to kill everyone in Germany. Yeah, that's your personal experience, but that's not revelation for me, because it's not coming from an enlightened place. So what we call Shabda or Shastra is the personal experience. Jiva Goswami used the term, sorry for so many technical Sanskrit terms. He used the term Vaidusha Pratyaksha, which means the personal experience of a Vaidusha, which means of an enlightened person, a seer of truth. So when someone is enlightened and have a personal experience, that becomes revelation for us. But even if we are not enlightened fully, still we only have our personal experience. To follow my point? So that will be my final yardstick. I cannot accept Shastra. If you come and tell me, I don't know, Srila Prabhupada is an enlightened person, you have to accept him. But I have no personal experience of anything about Prabhupada. I cannot accept that because I don't know yet. If I will accept it without personal experience, I'm a cult member. I'm a blind follower. I'm not saying that Prabhupada is not enlightened. I'm just saying you need to have your own experience of that first. But many times we will not do that. Many times like, oh, you have to accept that guru as your guru. Why? Because he's a pure devotee. How do you know? Because everyone says he's a pure devotee. Yeah, but then maybe he's a pure devotee, but that if you don't have any experience, that what everyone says is what everyone says. You follow my point? But many times we operate based on public opinion. Everyone says that guru is the coolest one or the most influential, and we just believe what everyone says. And that replaces personal experience. That's not the idea. Because we want to develop shraddha or faith, and faith is not belief. Faith is have a personal experience, and then I develop a trust based on that undeniable experience. Belief is a mental conviction, who knows, because everyone else says. So I believe this. That doesn't mean you have had an experience, right? So yeah, I think it's important that, and as you also mentioned, Rajendrananda Prabhu, that okay, there is experience. We have to have our own experience, and based on our experience, we take responsibility for ourselves. But also there is place to understand that scriptures are written and spoken and shared in certain time, place, and circumstance also. And sometimes we may need to discern some of those aspects. And it doesn't mean that we are de-absolutizing the message, but Bhagavatam itself says, in this book, the Bhagavatam is saying there are essential and non-essential elements. And you're expected to be like a bumblebee who just goes and takes the essence, becomes a Saragrahi. No? Because if you absolutize everything, something may be more like I don't know, a cultural expression of the time. And sometimes absolutizing something means that we are reading that literally. Instead of understanding, oh, that at that time this meant this. But now I cannot replicate that and say it in the same way. Because it may be even traumatizing. Let me give you an example. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, Jagai Madai Haiti Munishe Papishta Purishe Rakita Haiti Munishe Lagis. I'm lower than the worm in the stool. So imagine you are coming here first time, knowing Krishna consciousness, coming to your first lecture. Swami Padmanabha happens to be the speaker, and he will introduce you to this ancient philosophy telling you that you're lower than the worm in the stool. I'm not so sure with your contemporary postmodern Western sensibilities that will sit very well with you. So you have to get to that place, feel lower than the worm in the stool. Okay? Do your best. That's my homework for today. See you next class. Probably I won't see you in the next one. But that's their interpretation, right? So we cannot erase that line, but we can make our best effort to understand what did Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami meant. No? Not to be too quick in judging that negatively, not to be too quick in just copy paste and literally, okay, I have to do that because that's in Shastra, right? I've seen that. We are laughing not to cry. Okay, I've seen devotees really making a good effort to feel lower than the worm in the stool. And they were successful in doing that, but from a very dysfunctional place. And they end up traumatized. And many living for things like that. And it's like, we don't want that to happen. So what to do with a line like that? That's just one example, right? But we have to travel in time, no? Hundreds of years back to, okay, what that symbol meant at that time. There was some cultural analogy invoked at that time, in that place, time, place, circumstance, that Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami meant it. To begin with, that line, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, I am that. So he's not saying you should feel like that. So that's to begin with. And he may feel like that in an ecstatic mode of love and extreme humility that we cannot understand from this place. That could be a first beginning. He's not saying you should also do that. He's expressing himself. But even beyond that, the analogy of the worm in the stool, which it's disgusting to think about it in one sense, right? But there's a point made there that can be understood in a healthy way. And before going there, and verse related to that is, because all this is in the context of humility many times. But humility is not about you feeling more miserable than you already feel. You should be humble. You should feel very bad about yourself. That's not humility. Mahaprabhu say, be more humble than a blade of grass. That doesn't mean allow yourself to be humiliated and abused and feel the worst of the worst. It means just, how does a grass is humbled? How the grass is bending without breaking. It's flexible enough to bend, but not to break. So you should be humble in that way. Bend in a way that is not breaking you apart. That's one way of explaining it. Just I went there for a minute. Let's go back to the worm in the stool. There's a classical story from that time in India that basically explains what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami meant by that. And it's this disciple, aspirant disciple, went to a guru, and this aspirant disciple had lots of knowledge. Going back to Louis' question, lots of information, but this person was very proud of, I know so much. I'm such a pandit, such a scholar. But he wanted to accept someone as a guru. And that guru could see from the distance, like, okay, this guy comes with an aura of pride and scholarship. So he wants to be my disciple. Okay, I want to help him. So I have to help him to release that false sense of identity. So he asked him, okay, I will give you in a week initiation, but first you need to go out and find someone who is lower than you in all respects. And this guy felt, oh, that's easy. Right? Because he was very full in himself, right? So, it may take 5 minutes, 7 minutes, not 7 days. I will just walk around the corner. First person probably is lower than me, no risk. But already the guru gave the instruction and he accepted to follow the instruction. So some mercy was already operating in that exchange and started the transformation process for the disciple, even without him knowing. So he goes quickly to find the very first person. He met another Vaishnava, and he's very quickly trying going in that direction. He's lower than me in all respect, but since the instruction of the guru is in between all that, there was some mercy flowing that helped him to see some virtue that he didn't have in this person. He, oh no, oh, he has this quality I don't have. Okay, next person. So he goes to another devotee. Well, then the same pattern. He becomes gradually trained more and more in, oh, he has this quality I don't have. Okay, I will look for a human being who is not a spiritualist. Maybe that will be easier. But again, his mind is getting unconsciously trained more and more to find qualities. So he's more quicker and quicker finding a quality. Okay. 2 days are passing and he's becoming nervous because he feels if I fail in this, I won't get initiated. Remember, that was the prompt. And then he goes, okay, I'm not successful in the human kingdom. I'll go to the animal kingdom. That may be easier. So he goes and starts to see one animal or the other. But again, he was trained more and more to find qualities. So, not the bumblebee. There is this quality the bumblebee has, and this. So he's on the 7th day, last day. He fails that day. Supposedly, he will not receive initiation. So he's in such an anxiety. I need to find someone who is lower than me in every respect. So at one point, he's walking and he sees a pile of stool and a worm there. Remember, worm in the stool. And he says, finally. Oof. I thought it will fail. Finally, I'm seeing here someone who is lower than me in every respect. Look, check how abominable. This worm in the stool. What? How you cannot get lower than that. He was thinking first. But then again, he was so in that week he was so wired to find qualities that very quickly he realized, I eat prasad and my prasad becomes stool. And this worm is going to that stool and making compost out of that. I cannot do that. I'm lower than the worm in the stool. In that context, he said that. Like in the concept of appreciating other people's qualities, not feeling miserable about yourself. That's the concept. And of course, he goes back to the guru thinking I failed, right? I failed my homework, so I won't get initiated. So the guru is waiting. So how it went for you after this week? And the disciple counselor, I didn't find anyone who is lower than me in every respect. I failed. They would say, no, you didn't fail. You were successful. That was the idea. Now you're ready for initiation. No? So anyhow, I'm giving an example from scripture in connection to your question about how something, if we isolate that statement outside of their culture of the time, the imaginary, the expressions, we can just copy paste, take it literal, absolutize it, and traumatize a whole generation of practitioners. And it just takes a good, sometimes scholar and historian that will take us a few hundred years back and say, no, in Bengal at that time, this example was employed in this context and it meant this. And of course, that requires some guidance, because sometimes if we just approach the book by ourselves without being properly prepared, we may really become confused. So that's why it's always emphasized, study Shastra under the guidance of Guru rather than the guidance of Sadhu. So
even with the sadhus, you have to decide yourself. If I associate with this person,
yeah.
will my heart become softer?
Yeah.
The same.
Yeah, that principle remains foundational. That's why I started speaking about personal experience, and before we spoke about softening the heart and not getting. At the end of the day, we have to take responsibility for who I am choosing as my guide, as my association, as my everything. Because sometimes in the name of humility and surrender, we do not take responsibility for ourselves. And if then something is happening not so nicely, I don't know, we even blame Krishna, but I won't take responsibility. So it's good to, and even if we take a choice and eventually didn't work as expected originally, okay, it's part of the learning journey. We don't need to feel terrible about it. No? I have some personal experience with that in connection to former gurus, that it didn't end up working as I thought originally. But I don't need to feel, I don't know, Krishna betrayed me, or I'm such a bad person and this happened because of that, or that person who was my guru is such an evil guy. No, it was what it was, and I take my responsibility in having chosen that person. And there's a learning and lesson there, and I'm grateful for so many things, and the journey continues.
Can I ask you, who is your guru?
That's not okay. I will reply not by giving you any name, but I will reply in a few ways that I personally feel inspired to reply. And don't take it personal. I like you, just in case. So far, yeah. So it's I don't think that question is two things. I don't think the question is proper, and I'm not talking to you in general, because that question comes always. Who's your guru, right? Sometimes in Gaudiya Vaishnava circles, like, what's your name? Who's your guru? No? I personally feel it's a little invasive of a question, because guru is something very confidential, very personal. Sanatana Goswami says in Hari Bhakti Vilas, Gopayet Guru Ratmana. Hide your guru, he says. Gopayet Ishtadevatam, Gopayet Chaniyamantram, Gopayet Nijamalikam. Hide your Ishtadev, hide your guru, hide your Malika, your Japamala, and hide your mantra. Like, hide means keep that confidential. That's something very sacred. So it's not just like for. That's my take. Again, I'm not canceling your question. I know it comes from a good heart. But when someone asks me that, I try to quote that. Like, it's like if I know you someone after 2 minutes and I'm meeting Brajendra Nandan for the first 2 minutes and asking, what's your bank account number? And it's like, right. I mean, I know you after 2 minutes, right? That's pretty private. So who is your guru should be something. I know that sometimes it becomes even like an introduction credential, like, this is my guru. But also that carries a problem, because many times we end up judging each other according to who is our guru. You follow my point?
Yes.
And I felt that many times when someone asks, who is your guru? I feel, depending on my answer, the conversation continues or stops here. So basically what that person is telling me is, I don't care about you, just about who is your guru, or who is your institution, or which are your credentials. But who am I? We have to relate as people, not that just who's your guru, your affiliation, that can be there somewhere, but we have to care for each other as people. Right? So that's one answer. But the second part, which in connection to what I feel the question, in my opinion, is not complete, is that who is your guru is in singular. Why I have to reply only with one name? How does Chaitanya Charitamrita starts? First two words of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Vande Gurun. Gurun is plural. I offer my pranam to my gurus. So of course, there can be one guru who is most important, who is your Diksha guru, but we know many examples in our tradition that there's a plurality of gurus, and you can have Diksha, Siksha, and sometimes your Siksha guru may become more prominent than your Diksha guru. Different cases. And at the end of the day, guru is one. No? It's a one undivided and non-dual principle that takes form in different individuals, but guru is one. So there's not also like a competition between this guru, ideally. That shouldn't happen. But there's a plurality also. So if I say, who is your guru? It's kind of, I'm forced to give you one name only. And what if my heart is, in part, this, I feel this is my guru, and this is my guru? No? You follow my point? So I feel that
everything could be your guru.
exactly. Bhagavatam gives this list of 24 gurus. We were talking the other day in Switzerland, right? The 11th canto, there are 24 gurus given in the Bhagavatam. The list is not including Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I mean, with all respect to each one of them, of course. The list starts with Mother Earth, goes on with the wind and the moon and the bumblebee and the deer and the spider as the snake. The humans are not appearing in the list. Eventually, a few humans appeared from the 24 3 humans. What are those 3 humans? A baby, a little girl, and a prostitute. Again, I'm not saying only those 24 can be your gurus, but the Bhagavatam is trying to expand our notion of what's guru. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Goswami Maharaj, who is one of my gurus, I will say, he will say, spiritual world is the land of gurus, where even the land is your guru. So we want to enter a place where everything is our guru. It may begin here with one guru, but that guru has to teach you how everything is your guru. So you eventually find yourself in a land of gurus. Right? So guru is a principle. The first guru in our parampara is Krishna. Right? If you read the parampara that we have in the books, Krishna comes first. And one of the qualities of Krishna is he's omnipresent. So Krishna is guru, Krishna is omnipresent, guru is omnipresent. Guru is everywhere. Of course, sometimes we don't find that. We don't see guru everywhere because we are nowhere many times. Guru is omnipresent, we are omni-absent, as I like to say sometimes. And that's why we need one person that and not to downplay that one person, but just to understand the nature of Guru Tattva. But many times it's very easy to misunderstand Guru Tattva. So, for example, Rupa Goswami said, Vishram Bena Guru Seva. You have to develop your relationship with your Guru in terms of deep friendship and trust. Of course, your Guru will be seen as an elder and as a senior, but still some friendship has to develop in the relationship. So Guru is my friend. But generally we don't think as friend in singular. Now, if I ask you, who is your friend? You will say, that's a weird question. Why in singular? Why you are limiting me to having only one friend? So, but we say, who is your Guru? But Guru is supposed to be your friend. So I can have more than one friend. So that will be my answer to your question. Of course, we can enter more into the technical details of my own journey with human guru figures, and that may take lots of time. It's of public knowledge. I'm not hiding anything here. But I wanted to emphasize that side of the answer because I think first it's something personal and private, and also I think it's something that could take form in beyond the singular, so to say. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you for your answer.
No, please.
So, yeah, I also want to learn, to see Guru Tattva everywhere, being even this, it's so firm and everything can teach us.
That's idea. I remember a few months ago, a devotee sent me a video from a YouTube channel of a Christian contemplative author, and he was teaching about lessons from a rock. So how to engage in contemplation with the rock. So it would be like a 40 minutes video with him and a rock. So he will, 40 minutes? How he survived that, how will I survive watching that, right? You may think. But he starts, so he puts the rock on his hand and starts to connect with the rock. Of course, you need some time to stop and pay attention. And he starts to see, as you say, some qualities. Oh, as the table is firm, that's teaching me firmness, and this. And so he was half an hour drawing lessons from a rock.
Mm.
That's the idea. Mahaprabhu's most important instruction is basically that. Look at the grass.
Mm.
Oh, a guru teaching me humility. Then he looks for a moment on the other side. Oh, Tarora Pisahisham. Oh, the tree is teaching me tolerance and compassion and forgiveness. I don't think that Mahaprabhu just wrote that casually. Yeah, let's think about a cool example for tolerance. He was really spending lots of time looking at the tree and finding Sri Guru there. At the end of the day, the parampara gets universalized. Like, wow, I'm surrounded by gurus everywhere. Again, it starts in one place, but Sanatana Goswami, in one commentary of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, he will say, if you relate to a blade of grass, going back to the blade of grass, for what it actually is, you can attain all perfection. You cannot get more contemplative than that. He's invited. You can spend enough time, proper attention with a blade of grass. All perfection is waiting for you in that blade of grass. Such a guru is there. Again, we may say, but I'm not experiencing that. But that's because that's not the fault of the blade of grass. It's just that we are running too fast. We are not even noticing the blade of grass. What to speak of learning from it? We just walked and did you see all the trees from the last block? Oh no, I didn't see any of them. So a big part of our process is learning to pay attention to what's already taking place instead of praying for things to take place also, but what's already taking place? What are you doing with that? Things are coming. No? Krishna, give me mercy. Krishna, already lots of mercies coming. What are you doing with that? So big part of the process is, adjusting our speed of life so we can really hear and see and honor what's coming. And there's a lot coming, actually. That's what, the more we pay that close attention, we won't be asking for more because we will be too busy honoring what's already coming on our way. Again, looking at the table, probably. Yeah.
Question.
Frederick, what's your name? No.
Frank.
Frank.
To be reflective, we have to judge. We have to get points or leave points behind us. How to keep this in balance, or what is helpful for keep this in balance, that we really staying open-minded and are also open for needed changes and also leaving unnecessary changes or even weight which is hindering us for changes of the side. If you don't have always a person for approach, a guru, what is a tip for this daily, even this is daily decisions?
Now comes something even more shocking. Already all that I say about guru may be shocking. Now comes one more shocking, which is sometimes you have to be your own guru. And that's said in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's not me. There's one verse in the Bhagavatam that says at times you have to be your own guru. Because of course you may not have your guide next to you all day. Like what to do in this situation, Gurudev? What to do in this situation? And that will be at one point a little bit codependent, right? One point the Guru is like, think for yourself. Prabhupada will say, I want you to become independently thoughtful people. That's what I mean by be your own guru, right? Become mature enough that may not be in the beginning, but reach a point where you can think for yourself and discern and take decisions and take responsibility and not be overtly dependent on someone else telling you what to do or what to think. Ideally, guru is not teaching what to think, but how to think. So then you learn to think by yourself. You already have the tool. The guru is not ideally creating codependent people that always depend on him or her for doing anything and everything. Ideally, the guru is creating free people. Again, independently thoughtful. Prabhupada also free people. the guru is creating gurus, and that will be the idea. Of course, not everyone is in that point, and in the beginning we may need more accompaniment, like a baby. I see the baby in the first years. When we were 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, we were utterly dependent on our parents. Literally, they had to save our lives on a daily basis. If they leave us by ourselves, we are already jumping on the roof or crawling on the avenue. Who knows? I mean, we'll kill ourselves in record time. I was talking the other day with a mother, and she framed it that way. As a mother, my first years with my baby was just saving her life every day. Right? That's an intense investment. You have to be there. You cannot lose sight of your baby after. Jennifer has a 2-year-old baby, right? So she knows what we're talking about. So, but eventually the idea is that the more the baby grows, the more, yeah. It gets complicated, yeah. I was not going to say everything becomes easier. Complicated, teenage years, existential crisis, all that stuff. But at the same time, the mother does not to be like every second looking at the child. There's a relaxation in that dimension, at least. And eventually, if everything goes well, ideally the child becomes an adult and have their life. And still the parent is there more as a friend, I will say. Again, the relationship has to evolve to a type of friendship. Every relationship has to evolve to a type of friendship. With your brothers, with your mother, with your father, with your son, with your guru, with your partner. Each one ideally needs to reach a blossoming point of some form of friendship. So in the beginning, again, we may not have the discernment, and we may need someone to really be next to us at every stage to accompany us in how to think. But eventually, we need to learn introspection and discernment, and that doesn't mean that we will always take the most enlightened choices. Sometimes I will do something and I realize, oops, I could have done better, but I still can learn from that. Even what we will like to label as a failure, as they say, failure is the pillar of success. One of my mentors, Father Richard Rohr, he will say, we learn more by doing it wrong than by doing it right. Right? You pay attention to your life. Many times you do it right and you are not learning a lesson. Probably you become more complacent. I'm doing it right. So good I am. You do it wrong. Oh, well, what do I have to learn here? Hopefully, right? So in one sense, I don't have a tip, right? I don't have like sorry. That's a tip. There is no tip. In the sense that there is no magical formula that now Swami Padmanabha will say this and we will have the most enlightened decisions at every step and there won't be any more mistakes. And no, that's not how life works. There is messiness and ups and downs and all these things that we need to go through. So it's growing and trying to be as honest as you can with the tools you have. I don't know, I think of myself, for example, I don't know, I took sannyas. I lost count. Like 16 years ago. Yesterday we were talking with two devotees I met in the Switzerland temple, Krishna Prema Rupa, and another sannyasi who was visiting Bhakti Sarvagnya Gauranga Maharaj, I think is his name now. And we were sharing our stories, and I was like, yeah, I took sannyas at 28. Now he took sannyas recently, a few months ago. He's my age. Mm-hmm. And we were born one day apart, we realized, interestingly. And it's like, I took sannyas at 28. And I was like, that was very young. I mean, it's fine. I'm not repenting, but I look at myself 15 years back, and I was a very different person. And I can see I did so many things. What I will say now is, oh, that was so immature. That was so naive. But that was the best I could do at the time at the same time. So, and I'm sure in a few years, I hope, I look back to me being now 44 and say, like, oh, that was not the all in all. But maybe that was my all in all at that time. That's for me the important thing. You try to give yourself as much as you can at that present moment. You know, that's not the finished product. We were talking in our first answer to your question. You will never reach a final point of development. So that keeps you always in a learning spirit. You know, Siddhartha Maharaj will say, students forever. That's our motto, students forever. It's not a point that you are no longer a student. Krishna himself says, Chaitanya Chaitamrita, Radhikar Prema Guru Amishishyanata. The love of Sri Radha is my guru, and I am a student in her school. So we have God saying, I'm a student forever. We will say, no, I'm not a student forever. Now I'm a teacher. No, you're a student forever. So yeah, we will keep learning. We will keep making mistakes. But if you learn from your mistakes, how much you can call them mistake? So the important thing is not if you are mistaken or not, but what do you do with that mistake? And I will conclude my answer with a very unusual pramana. So far we have been talking about Bhagavatam. I'll go to Miles Davis now. Jazz musician. Anyhow, he's a musician. I'm a musician as well. So he was actually the Herbie Hancock, which he's a piano player. He was playing with Miles Davis. He will play clarinet or trumpet. Trumpet, sorry. So they're improvising. Jazz is a lot about improvising. But in certain parameters. It's not that you do anything and everything. There are certain rules, but in that you improvise. So Herbie Hancock is playing piano, and at one point he plays a wrong note. There is a wrong note in improvising. You can go off. So he's telling the story himself that he played the wrong note. He was, I ruined the whole thing. And he was looking at Miles Davis, who was like the main musician in the band, and now he will reduce me to ashes with a glance. But no, Miles Davis took that wrong note and he started to develop a whole new melodic pattern based on the wrong note. So he changed completely the scale to fit the wrong note. Of course, not everyone can do that, but the teaching there, and he said after, it's not so much if the note was wrong or not, but what do you do with that after? That proves if there was a mistake or not. So it's and he was reflecting on that. He's a Buddhist. Herbie Hancock says, yeah, that's how life works. Oh, I played the wrong note. No, it's not wrong. Let's see what you do with that. You can create a new melodic pattern that can prove to be a new avenue of exploration and takes you to places you needed to go. But you needed that wrong note, that failure, that tragedy, that betrayal sometimes, that crisis, what feels to be like, again, Samvartaka clouds, going back to the Govardhan Lila, the worst, the most painful moments of your life. Maybe you look them back and it's like, wow, that was the most insightful moment of my life at the same time. At least on a personal level, I had that paradoxical experience. It was the most painful moment of my life. It was the most insightful moment of my life. And I'm so grateful for that. As I'm still carrying the scars from that chapter, I'm grateful for that. So that's my tip.
Actually, it's also often this question is so threatening because we think we might get punished, or we think we might make a mistake and we will end
punished
up
by whom?
In a wrong place. But
punished by whom?
Yeah, but Krishna, you said sees our intention. He will help us anyway. He can make like with a wrong road, just as you mentioned. He can turn every path into a beautiful.
Yeah, and again, each one of these comments deserve their own 1 week series. But it's okay. We will have eternity for that, hosting us till we. But yeah, I totally agree. But sometimes we have so dysfunctional ideas about God. That Krishna is, again, and many times that's from childhood trauma, angry daddy, abusive stuff, and we project on the ultimate authority figure, God. I didn't have healed my wounds by my original caretakers. It goes projected all the way to heaven, so to say. And then we have this idea: Krishna is an angry God. He will punish me. He will send me to hell if I one day chant 15 rounds, not 16. I'm losing my human form of life right now. And on the other side, we have him giving Putana Vatsalya Rasa as like, oh. Yeah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, ocean of mercy. But if you do this, punish forever. It's like, oh, no need to give names, but today in the morning I heard a story about that in that connection. Like someone was carrying a plate with some elements, not to enter into the details, but they say like if you spill one drop of this sacred ingredient for the service of Krishna, you will go to hell forever. And it's like, okay. Interesting. Do you really believe that will happen? That's Krishna. So sometimes we have very incoherent ideas of God. And again, I say he's an ocean of mercy, and 5 minutes after I'm saying he can send you to hell for the slightest failure. And it's like, it doesn't make sense. So we have to really, my next book will be a big part about that. It's about unconditional love. And in the concept that we'll be talking about even some description. I recently wrote an article on the hellish planets describing the Srimad Bhagavatam. And to be honest, I do not take that section too seriously, too literally. Not seriously, but not literally. Literally doesn't make any sense with the rest of the book. Because you will find some chastisements, like if you had once extramarital sex, you have to go to that place for who knows how long and embrace like a bird blazing form for one extramarital. It's like, that's a language used to induce fear in people, which I can understand is a great motivator for some people, but not for every person. So you have to understand those sections with some discernment, because if not, you get terrified about that. And then how you put that together with Krishna's sweetness and mercy and love, because we need to make sense of the whole scriptures, not just take isolated bits and pick our own. We have to, Rupa Goswami said, you cannot cherry pick your favorite. You have to reconcile. And always love and mercy and compassion are the foremost qualities of the divine. So everything else has to be seen in that context, not canceling that. So
Also, Bhakti is saying Shastra shouldn't be by words, but by mood.
Again?
Bhaktivinoda
Yeah.
is also saying that we should not take Shastra by words, but by mood.
Yeah. Well, we were talking yesterday. It feels like yesterday, a few hours ago. Literal reading, more interpreted reading, esoteric reading. We need to be aware of those distinctions at some point. In the beginning, you will take all literal. But then you have the problems, because as you were saying, some things are not Prabhupada says. He said many things. Different things about the same topic. No? You fall from Vaikuntha. Nobody falls from Vaikuntha. No. I won't go there into more detail now. It's a long conversation. But you have both. And you can, okay, I'll pick option B. It doesn't work like that. You have to take everything and try to make sense. Okay, why he say this? Why he say that? Okay, we have time for more. I don't want to overexhaust you.
Yes, please.
But I'm asking everyone. We are a group. I appreciate your personal passion, but we are a collective of human beings here. Let's go with one more, Tattva Darshini.
It's quite connected.
Okay.
I was really wondering about these 10 offenses. And I'm really happy that in Golokadam we don't speak it in the morning. Because it makes sense it's spoken in the morning.
Yeah.
But psychologically, the not
Yeah,
we should
yeah,
not do is
yeah.
not working.
Yeah.
So once I started to turn it around and speak it positively,
Yeah.
what I should do.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, where is it coming from and why is it there?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for me.
We talked about that after the Bhakti Bloom in German, exactly about that question. Someone asked me about the 10 offenses, and I say, yeah, they're all in negative. They're all in what not to do. I'm not criticizing that. Sometimes we need to understand what something is not. Like Krishna, the Gita is saying what the soul is not. A lot before saying what the soul is. The soul cannot die, cannot be burned, cannot be that, does not do that. And then so positively, what are we something positive? And then he says, Ascharyavat, Ascharyavat, Ascharyavat. You are amazing, amazing, amazing. So there is a purpose to say something negatively to prepare a ground for, but we have to be careful not to get stuck into as we were talking yesterday in the car and I mentioned that in radical personalism with the 4 regulative principles, and that in some Vaishnava groups are very defining of who we are or what we do, right? So imagine if I ask you, so okay, you are a Vaishnava, what is your practice about? No, you tell me, I do not eat meat, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. Okay, and what do you do? I do not do this and I do not do that. But what do you do? No, something positive. It's not about not doing stuff. What's the positive counterpart? I mean, I'm not against saying no this, but just don't get the full picture. And what's the full picture? Again, for example, and I mentioned that in my book, no meat eating. That's a sample of the actual thing. It's not meat. It's not no meat eating. It's gradually. Let's get gradually there. Ahimsa is the principle, because these 4 regulative principles appear in the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? The 4 pillars of Dharma: Ahimsa, Sociam, Tapas, and Satyam. So let's take one, for example, just, okay, no meat eating, that's the principle. So I'm vegetarian, I'm following it. No, it's Ahimsa, non-violence. It goes beyond the plate. You can be very peaceful in the table, but you leave the table and you're.
And it's a vow which we cannot fulfill the whole lifetime, maybe even.
We are getting there. Yeah, because even if I say non-violence, again, I'm defining it negatively. Non-violence. So how will you say non-violence in a positive way? Compassion, kindness, lovingness. So now we are starting to get to the actual principle. And then it's not just be compassionate, because you can take it, okay, I will be as less compassionate as I can be. What's the lowest possible denominator of compassion? Okay, I'm following. No. Be as compassionate as you can be. As loving as you can, without overexerting yourself, but what's your potential in terms of compassion and kindness? That's the regulative principle. So now you see it from no meat eating to be as loving, as compassionate as you can. There is some difference there. And when you realize that, you realize, oh, I'm breaking that 4 regulative principles all day. Because I'm not as compassionate and loving as I can. I'm not as truthful, Satyam, as I could. And not to make you feel bad about that, just for us not to take for granted this. Oh no, I'm already follow the formula, so I'm in. And that creates some toxic sense of complacency, instead of a humbling sense of, no, this can always be embraced deeper. It can always be a little bit more loving, more compassionate, more truthful, more each of the qualities, right? So, and they are all defined positively then. So the same with the Nama Parat, 10 Nama Parat, you can always find a positive way, how to relate to Guru, Vaishnava, Shastra in a positive way. To the demigods, interestingly, it's big part of those are about relationships. How do I relate to others? No? To Vaishnavas, to Guru, to demigods, to scripture, to those who do not have faith in the name at the end. No? Do not preach the glories of the name to those who do not have faith. It's not a way of saying, oh, they do not have faith. No, do not care for them. That's not the spirit of the idea. The idea is, do not disturb them by imposing something that they are not ready to digest. So be empathic and because before that you have to connect with the person enough to realize, oh, that person is not ready for this. So the implication is first you need to connect with the person to see where they're at and to see what they can digest. So the whole idea is be sensitive and compassionate to everyone. If you pay attention to those 10 now, perhaps at the end of days, learn to relate to everyone. Guru, Vaishnavas, those who do not have faith, demigods, yourself, everyone. We're speaking, and that's chanting. These rules are for chanting, right? And they all have to do with how we relate to everyone. So chanting and relating to everyone go. No? The main instruction for chanting that Mahaprabhu gives, Kirtaniya Sadahari, is Sunichena Sahishrunama Ninamanadena. All those virtues, you have to express them in relationship. So the most important instruction on chanting is have all to do with how you relate to other people. Right? So chanting is not an isolated exercise. I do my chanting, and then I don't know what to do with the rest of humanity. One thing affects the other, basically. So.
I wanted to ask, because you recently said cooperation is the beginning of love. I have here some answer.
What do you say after cooperation is the beginning of love, man?
You gave no some answer to this somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Why is cooperation the beginning of love? This was my question.
What will you say if someone asks you that same question? I sometimes do that.
Yeah, like we heard now, all these spiritual principles
Yeah.
which we try to follow.
Yeah.
Cannot stand for themselves. They have to be active. They have to be practiced in the association of all entities around us.
Yeah. And also for me, cooperation, at least for me, cooperation is the beginning of love. Cooperation means also, of course, cooperation. Cooperation. We are operating together. So together means there's someone else apart from me, and that someone else is different from me. So that I need to coexist with their differences, and I need to, as they are coexisting with my difference. So we need to learn to love each other in our differences. Of course, having enough common ground to tolerate our differences. So we're talking yesterday in the car, community. You cannot have community if there is no common unity, because that's community. That's the meaning of the word community. You have to be united enough with something that is binding enough that you share as a common interest. And then you can harmonize all difference, because all of us are absolutely different from each other, but all of us are absolutely connected with the common centrals. So cooperation for me is also that, right? Like, or another similar quote that we shared the other day in Germany, quote from Paul Tillich. He's a Christian author. He will say, the first duty of love is to listen. It's another way of saying, okay, we speak about love and we have all these grand narratives about love, but where to begin? Listen to each other. Pay enough attention to each other. That takes time to get to know each other, to get to really listen to each other, not just like casually, yeah, tell me. Okay, yeah, they're not listening. So be present for each other, know each other, accompany each other, love each other unconditionally. And it's difficult. I never use the word easy in any moment in my classes. That's not in my vocabulary. But that's cooperation. Okay, we are different. We have our stuff. We are work in progress. But let's make an effort. Prabhupada will emphasize cooperation, right? A lot. Try to keep working together. That doesn't mean a sectarian instruction to not relate to people inside or outside. And it's like learn to love each other. In other words, we speak about loving Krishna a lot, but in big part, that starts in how we relate to each other. Again, Krishna is in everyone's heart. How much can I love you, knowing that Krishna is in your heart? In one sense, you are one of the most concrete manifestations of Krishna in my life. No, Krishna in my face. It's in your heart. How I'm treating you, how I'm treating Krishna in your heart. Because if not, again, yeah, Krishna, I love you, I want to love Krishna. It all goes back how you are relating. The other day I was reading in this, the 40 Rules of Love. I quoted that the other day, that the author said it's easy to love God, relatively easy, perfect, all beautiful, all attractive. But how about loving the imperfect and the broken and all of us? That's a real test of love, because love has to be unconditional. Love cannot be, I only love you if you're perfect and all beautiful and all attractive. I love you even if you are whatever. Because that's how we are being loved by Krishna, unconditionally. Krishna is not saying, you are so imperfect yet. I don't love you at all. Send me a message when you have attained perfection. I will start loving you at that point. That is hopeless. No, so he's already loving us in our confusion and illusion and everything. So we are receiving that love, but sometimes we are not willing to extend that love to others. So the more we are unwilling to extend that love to others, the more we'll be incapable of perceiving that love already coming to us. So again, we have to be coherent. So yeah, all that cooperation means all that. It's not that everything will flow smoothly, everything always, and everything's Hare Krishna. There is also messiness and crisis, and that's part of life. It's okay. How we cooperate in those moments, not only when everything is perfect. Let's cooperate. No, also, but when there is a moment of need, a brother and sister in need, how we are willing to cooperate. As we will need their help in the moments we will need. No? So trying to enter into these more human sensitive spaces. Again, humanity, as we say before, in the name of spirituality, let's not stop being human. Because somehow inadvertently it's like, oh, I'm so concerned with being transcendental. Oh, I forgot my humanity. I threw my humanity on the way at some point. I don't know where it is. I cannot find it back again. That's not the idea. Okay, we can put the sharing to rest. Ananga Manjari has something very urgent to share.
It's just because practically looking, we are living here in community, and many times, I mean, we are also very in capacity of giving to others, especially when we are a lot different personalities, characters, whatever. And I'm thinking often this letter which Srila Prabhupada was writing to Yamuna, where he's saying, she's telling him, like, it's so important to associate. Association is very important. And then Prabhupada is saying association means 2 or 200. 200 sometimes can be very difficult because of not being compatible. And no one is making advancement, he's saying. So association can be also 2 persons who are just going together.
Yeah.
So sometimes very difficult in the community to find this growing together.
Yeah, I agree. That's why, and again, with this, we are not criticizing any particular community or group. That happens. I travel all year around the world, and I'm not hearing anything new here. As I say, yes, in the car. No, that's once one devotee said, some devotee was telling his Gurudev, this happened in the community, and this happened in the community, and this happened. He was like, the only perfect community is Golok Vrindavan. And as Hari Vyasa say, and even there are some like, I mean, not to be like resigned or not tragic or whatever, but just to know, yeah, okay, where to begin, and it begins at home, even so to say, even not even with Okay, I cannot relate perfectly with 200 to begin with. Yeah, let's be realistic. Okay, let's start with 2. No, not even 2. Let's start with 1. How you relate to yourself? Are you at war with yourself? Because if you're at war with yourself, you will just extend the Kurukshetra all around, right? And sometimes that's the most difficult one. And we want the 200 to adjust, so I don't have to look at my own battlefield. So it all begins at home, literally at myself. I'm at relatively at peace, aligned in peace with myself. I'm accepting myself. Because if that's not happening, I will just projecting assumptions and biases and fears and prejudice and filtering the whole of community, the whole of reality. So that's why it's important to start on us, and then, okay, me, then my husband, my wife, my kids, my neighbor. Gradually you get to the 200. But it starts with with 1, and also don't have like a over romanticized expectation that everyone in the community has to become your best friend. It's fine. And to develop intimate connections, we cannot do an intimate connection with 3,000 people. And it's okay, it's not a problem. It's just that to develop a relationship takes time. So I cannot be absolutely intimate with thousands because I don't have that much time. So we will have we can have our, even that's happened again in the spiritual world. Sri Radha has her inner circle, the very ones who are very favorable to her, those who are friendly to her, but also to other camps, or those who are neutral, those who are not neutral. So that shows that, okay, accept that that's the reality. You can have those who are your inner tribe, some other people, as we were talking the other day in Davos. With some people, you are on your journey in the same boat, so to say. With some others, they are going in a different boat, but they are navigating together almost. And you are like seeing each other from different boats and sharing so much. Some others will go on a different boat. Some others will be on a different ocean. Everyone is in their own boat, and it's okay. Again, we don't need like to, feel bad about ourselves. Like, why not everyone is one single thing? Well, diversity is okay, and as long as each one finds their own place, especially big communities. Of course, you need smaller groups to keep connection and intimacy. It's okay, it's not a problem. But again, hopefully everyone finds their place. That's the idea. Everyone feels I belong here. Okay, maybe we can put the sharing to rest. Not only the sharing, maybe you also need to rest. And of course, if you have time and you are invited to come, we'll be sharing later today at 5.
5-ish.
Yeah. And tomorrow, similar morning and evening. Those will be the 2 days here. So thank you so much for being here, your time, your presence, your questions, your sharing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Sadhu Sangha ki jai, Gaur Premanand, Panchakalpatarubhyascha, Sita Nam Bhavanebhyo